Get started. So hello, officially, for those of you who I don't know, my name is Dr. Andrea Johnson, and I will be spending a little bit of time with you today discussing managing your emotional well-being during the holidays. So I really appreciate you taking time out your busy schedules because we're just a few days away from Christmas. And some of you may be at work still wrapping up. But again, just appreciative of you taking out some time to talk about this important information. So first, I just want to take a moment to introduce myself. And I'll have this information up at the end as well. I'm the owner of A&J Consulting Services. And my mission in A&J Consulting Services is to help clients succeed in life, leadership, and business. I work in three distinct areas as it relates to life. I work with individuals and organizations around financial management. So that's personal finances like budgeting, improving credit, helping people to understand that process, as well as when it comes to just managing your overall financial well-being. Well-being also falls under the personal development as well, which we're going to spend some more time with that. I work with individuals, as I said, as well as organizations. I also work with individuals and organizations in the areas of business development. So whether that's someone that's starting out in a business, or if it's an organization that needs assistance with their financial management, I'm not an accountant, but for organizations that really, whether that's one person or an organization that's larger than that, needing help, again, managing finances, separating budgets, especially for entrepreneurs. If you're an entrepreneur, you need help understanding the process of separating your personal finances from that of your business finances. Or for organizations that may be a little more established, they may need help understanding how to position themselves in order to apply for funding. So, and then I'm also working in the area of leadership development, and it really all works together. So for organizations that also need training in whether they're in management, whether they're employees, around really understanding things like time management, becoming more effective. Again, with that well-being, we don't escape it. And so I work with organizations basically in those three areas. I've written several books on these topics. I need to mention also on the personal finance part, how to save thousands on college tuition. All these things tie into our financial well-being, which can affect our well-being. So again, just three distinct areas. So feel free to take a look at my website, A&J Consulting Services, to learn more about that, resources and tools. If your organization needs a trainer or you need a coach in any of those areas, you can go ahead and check that out. Also, I'm the founder and president of Bridge, and Bridge is an acronym for Building Resources in Disadvantaged Groups Through Economics and Empowerment. And Bridge works with organizations to be able to provide many of those resources through A&J Consulting Services, but maybe the budgets don't allow them to be able to do so. So whether that's hosting and providing workshops on financial literacy, entrepreneurship, or empowerment, that's what we do. So I've been in business for 20 years as an entrepreneur. My light's flickering for some reason. 20 years, but I've been doing it full time 8 years as an entrepreneur. And Bridge, I've been doing it almost as long, although they were both born at the same time. But if I have any entrepreneurs on here, it takes a while to build and get to, I won't say get to where you want to, but it's been a long time. I've been doing this. But you can learn more about me and my background. I've taught at the college level. You can learn about my educational background. Like I said, I'm a financial and business coach. I'm also certified, a GenOS certified emotional intelligence practitioner. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of different things with you today. That's a little bit about me, my background. You can go and you can learn more about me. So again, now what I do want to say is for those that are able to stay until the end of this session in person, virtually, but live, I do have a special gift for you for taking out your time and being able to stay. So I'll talk more about that once we're done, and I'll stop the recording and everything and talk to you more about how you can take advantage of that. But, and as a side note, at any time, please, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat. Don't be shy, or feel free to unmute yourself. Okay. I can talk to myself, but you know, it's fun to have feedback either way. But feel free. This is just something that I hope will help a lot of people. This information I'm going to share with you has certainly helped me on a personal note. And I've been able to help a lot of people with this information. So anyway, so our time together today, we're going to talk about briefly the science of emotions. We're going to also discuss understanding personality differences, as well as tips for improving your well-being, and not just during the holidays, but moving forward. So what I want to start out by asking you all first is, what stresses people out about the holidays? And feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat. Don't be shy. Or what are some things that stress you out? You stressed right now? I made a commitment to myself years ago. I was not going to let the holidays stress me out. And then my birthday is actually 3 days before Christmas. So I don't let my birthday stress me out either. I'm just glad to be around. So, all right, let me see what's in the chat here, what people are saying. Okay. Ooh, family, not enough hours in the day. Thank you. Children's Christmas list. Ooh, and that can be long. Who's done all their Christmas shopping? Don't you hate when people ask you that? Are you ready for Christmas? Family. Is anybody dreading being around certain family members? I'm not gonna call your name out. I'll just shout out I'll shout out just the answers. Oh, yes. Okay. What are you dreading most about them? Oh, I see some yeses. Get most about, about family in general. Oh, personalities. We're gonna talk about personalities today. Oh, missing deceased family. Absolutely. Absolutely. Grief, that grief can creep in on you. Absolutely. I can attest to all of that. Thank you. Thank you. Well, hopefully, I know I'm going to be able to give you some tools today that you can reflect on. And like I said, you can apply this even past the holidays. Thank y'all for sharing. Continue to share. All right. Now, what are some ways that you all know that people cope? It can be good or bad, or productive or unproductive. Anything? They isolate. That's absolutely right. So some people don't want to be bothered, at all. Praying, yes, prayer is good. Prayer is good year round, but especially during these holidays. Isolation and substance abuse, absolutely. And so when we talk about these things, my next question was, what are the challenges with the way that some of the ways that people cope? Well, we know like things like praying can be productive, but isolation and substance abuse could be destructive. Substance abuse is destructive, but isolation, all those things can lead to other things. So you're absolutely right. Thank you. I just like I said, I don't want to have all the fun today, but wanted to see what kind of thoughts you all have about that. All right. So we're going to get into strategies for managing our well-being. So I asked you all about some common management strategies, and you shared those with me. If you think of something else along the way, feel free to share that. We're going to get into the science of emotions. And first, and then we're going to talk about understanding the personality differences, as someone said before. So again, these are some of the things we're going to talk about. But next, since we've already talked a little bit about the common management strategies, let's get into the science of emotions, and then we'll talk about some personality differences. So when we talk about the science of well-being, we can say that well-being is really defined as a part of a diverse and interconnected component of wellness that includes your mental, physical, social, and environmental well-being. And the science of well-being has shown us that if we all have well-being, we can improve on it by doing things in each of these areas that are good for us. So again, we all have levels of well-being, but we can always improve on them. So again, that's mental, physical, social, and environmental. I'm going to come back to this towards the end, and I'm going to share with you all some tips in each of these areas. And again, feel free to share because we can build on these things together. All right. Oh, and also stop me if you have any questions, any thoughts. Either I'll be able to answer it or I can't, or I can give you some additional resources, but feel free to comment or share. Let me check my chat button here. Okay. All right, then we're going to continue. So the science of, when we talk about continuing with the science of well-being, I'm just going to share what research has said about the science of well-being. The science of well-being has also shown us, it's like the fingerprints on our hands. While we all have it, what maintains and improves our well-being is unique to each of us. So again, what we need to stay well mentally, physically is going to differ depending on the person. There is no cookie cutter approach. But since we are talking about improving our well-being, which is our goal together today, this also involves our emotional intelligence, and in particular, the competency of emotional self-awareness. So when we talk about, so what I have up here is what is called the GENOS model of emotional intelligence. And so when we look at this model, there are 6 main components of this, which we won't get into all of this today. This is beyond the scope of our time together. However, if any of you listening are interested in learning more, and even learning more about how you can get an emotional intelligence assessment, this is something that I am certified in. This is something that I also train in and work with people individually as well as in groups. So today we're just going to talk about that self-awareness piece that they refer to, because that is the competency that is important when we're talking about well-being. Not to say the others are not, but it is important that we understand self-awareness. So for example, if you're said to have good levels of well-being, if you typically are confident in who you are and how you feel about yourself. So if you don't feel good about yourself, then, when we talk about your level of self-awareness, it's going to be low. So again, it's about making sure you feel good about yourself. You feel capable about what you can do. If you feel that way, then you're going to have positive relationships with others and social satisfaction. You're going to have physical vitality and a sense of accomplishment and personal fulfillment in life. How well we understand and respond to emotions within ourselves and others is central to our well-being. So this research that I'm sharing with you on emotional intelligence consistently shows a positive correlation with well-being. As we improve our emotional intelligence, our well-being also improves with it. So again, emotional intelligence is it's key to our well-being. So again, if we're not really aware of ourselves or how others perceive us, and we don't feel good, again, our well-being levels are going to be lower. So again, this is a little science behind it when you talk about that. So before we move to the next diagram, I want to share when we talk about self-awareness, which is this top competency. When we talk about this, it's important to note that, and I'm sure you all know this, but we don't all demonstrate emotional intelligence all of the time. We have emotional intelligence. So let me back up and say this. We all have emotional intelligence, but we're not always productive or in a productive state. That's what the unproductive states and the productive states on each side refer to. So self-awareness, and any of these in the orange, when you are displaying when you're displaying it in a productive manner, then to the right is what this looks like. So let's say, for example, self-awareness. The unproductive side of self-awareness is being disconnected. The productive side or state of self-awareness is being present. And again, not all of us are going to float. Well, none of us float in the productive state all the time. But what's most important as it relates to self-awareness, really all of these, but like I said, we're focusing on self-awareness, is that we're aware and we work and take those tools to get back to that productive state. Does that make sense, or was that overwhelming? This science stuff for me can be a bit boring, but very important when we talk about well-being, because when I think about not feeling well mentally or physically or being stressed, a lot of times we'll say, you know, stress is bad for your body, but talking about in terms of well-being, I've never, until I was trained, really understood, you know, all of these things played a part. So any questions about that? Y'all not sleep on me, are you? Okay, let me see, we got a comment. Please give an example. All right, so maybe I'm gonna tell you what, I'm going to go to this next diagram and let me know if this answers your question. I'm gonna call your name right now. Okay, so if I haven't answered your question with this example, I have allergies and have a dry throat, so I may have to drink some water from time to time. So let's go deeper into an example. And again, please ask that question again if it doesn't make sense. So really, from the prior slide, let me go back. Again, these are the core competencies when we talk about emotional intelligence. But again, so what we're saying is in order for you to be self-aware, and again, I'm going to go deeper into that, but self-awareness, you're disconnected if you're in an unproductive state, or if you're in a productive state, you're present. You know what, let's talk about that for a second let's talk about what kinds of examples can someone think about. I don't want to have all the answers. I was getting ready to give an answer. I have some ideas. Somebody said something about, someone said something about being isolated, but can someone want to give an example? I have to forget to ask you all if y'all want to give some. Yeah, go ahead. I totally understand. Type in if you want to. I appreciate you being here. Can anybody think of an example of that self-awareness? Where when we look at a person that's not self-aware, do y'all know anybody that's not self-aware and they demonstrate that unproductive state of being disconnected? So I changed my mind. I said, I won't talk about it now, but I do have another example, but let's take a moment here. When might a person be in the unproductive state of self-awareness? Disconnected. What do we think about here when we talk about being disconnected versus being present? We're just talking. So somebody asked the question. Knowing when we need to step away from a client issue. Thank you. Would you elaborate, please? How does that make you disconnected versus present? I like that, but let's get deeper.
Okay, I'm gonna unmute myself.
Hey,
so I would say if you are not being self-aware when you're having your own personal difficulties, and that personal difficulty may coincide with your clients, you have to pay attention to, what is it, countertransference, because if you're not going to be able to support the client in the way that they deserve to be supported.
An example. Now, for the person that asked for an example, how do you feel about that? Or want some more examples? We have some people on here. And again, I automatically go into starting to think about examples and outsides, but I want to hear from, we have a diverse background of people with diverse backgrounds in this presentation. So let me scroll back up. Do you want another example for the person that asked? Don't be shy to ask, because again, the scientific part may not be fun for some people, but again, it's good to understand what happens. Is that yes, that's good, or yes, you would like another example? I just like to clarify. I mean, teacher mode, like to make sure people understand it. Okay, another example. Someone want to give another example? You know what? Maybe I will go to the next diagram. Because I'm going to give you some more research here, and it talks about what happens, and I have a diagram. What happens when you go from your emotional brain to your thinking brain. But basically, I'm gonna and somebody else jump in here in the chat or unmute yourself if you want to. But I like the example that was given about having to step away, because when you're not self-aware, anybody know anybody that's not self-aware? You're like, they just don't have any level of self-awareness. So they don't know what's going on around them. They can't relate to someone. And I'm just putting this in layman's terms. They can't really relate. They can't be productive. They're just disconnected from everything that's going on around them. And a lot of times that's because they may be focused on themselves, as in the example that they gave. So, you know, whether you're working with a client, whether we're talking about in relationships with one another, whether we're talking about in volunteer work, and let's remember what I shared about when you're going to be more self-aware when you feel good about yourself. Has anybody ever, you know, been focused on some of your own things that you may have? And we all go through things. So I'm not asking you to share all your business, or any of your business, but you know, one of the things I try to keep my mind focused and have time for myself to process things, because if not, whatever issue it is going to keep coming up. It's going to keep popping up. And it's not fair to, let's say, if your clients or if you're a teacher and you're teaching. I remember when I used to teach at the college level, I would always say, and I say this now, even because I still teach, but I teach in my business, that whatever's going on in my life, it's not the fault of my students or the fault of whoever I'm serving, taking it out on other people because of how I may feel about certain things. All right, I'll hush there. But those are some examples. That's another example for me. But we can talk some more. Like I said, I got a free gift for you all, for those that hang on to the end. So, all right. So I hope that helped in understanding. We have to be mindful of self. I mean, and you know what? Most of the time, we're not walking around saying, I need to be self-aware today. I need to be self-aware today. I've had people to say, smile, or, you know, something, because I could be walking and be 3 weeks ahead in time, or not even realizing that, you know, and I'm working to be more present, to stay in today. So anyway, we could go all kind of places, but that would be an excellent discussion. But I gotta let y'all go, at least by 2. So I just want to spend a little time with you. So these are things to get you started. Like I said, there's a whole body of work. I'm just really introducing these things today. Like I said, for those of y'all that want to learn more about emotional intelligence, I'm really just introducing it. And we're just talking about that self-awareness today. But there are amazing assessments that you can do. And like I said, you can talk to me about that if you're interested in the workplace. And really, when we talk, I'll share this part with you. When you're talking about assessments and emotional intelligence, when we do assessments, we usually have, you have to select a couple of people that you've been working around for at least, let's say, 6 months. They can observe you. They understand. They've had the experience of observing you, whether it's in the workplace, it can be in volunteer or what have you. And then what happens is you answer a set of questions about what behaviors are important to you when you're displaying emotional intelligence, and then also rate yourself on how you demonstrate those. And then your raters do the same thing. Then we come together and compare what your raters said to you about you and how you demonstrated the importance of the behaviors to them, and how well you demonstrated them compared to your answers of how important they are to you and how you demonstrated them. And those questions in the assessment are based off of these 6 competencies. But again, we don't have time to go all into that, but I'm just giving you, this is where it comes to, because ultimately we want to all be productive, go from the unproductive state and stay more in the productive state. So yes. All right. But let's talk a little bit deeper, then I'm going to get off the research. So here's a nice little diagram, and I'm going to share some more research with you. So I don't know if anybody has ever heard of neuroscience, but this is the study of the biological mechanisms of the brain. And it's shown that whenever an event occurs around us, such as the way someone is talking to us in a meeting, our brains start to construct emotions. Some of the areas of the brain include the limbic system. This area of the brain is sometimes referred to as the emotional brain because it is thought to play an important role in emotional regulation. So this is the emotional brain right here. Okay. Anybody ever had I have been emotional before. And it's interesting when you look at this. I'm sure I'm not the only one on here, but this is our emotional brain. And it's thought to play an important role in emotional regulation. Then we have what's called the prefrontal cortex, a so-called thinking brain. It's also involved in the construction and evaluation of emotions. And this is this over here. See where my arrow is. And again, this is the prefrontal cortex, or the thinking brain. It's also involved in the construction and evaluation of emotions. And then among other executive functions, it helps us determine good from bad and better from best. It also helps us to anticipate behavior and determine the best behavioral response to make to events. This prefrontal cortex is also said to dictate an individual's personality, goals, and values, making it vital to our sense and understanding of ourselves. Working together, these areas of the brain help create and evaluate emotions that are stimulated by what's happening around us. A little bit more about this, and then we'll move. So, for example, research on emotions has showed us that pleasant emotions tend to enhance the functioning of our prefrontal cortex, having what social psychologist Barbara Fredrickson termed a broaden and build effect. Pleasant emotions help us think more openly, creatively, and laterally. So you see right here. So again, when we're experiencing pleasant emotions, this is where we are. So this is what I'm sharing with you right now. With pleasant emotions, we tend to be more open to new ideas. We also tend to think more deeply about issues and see more options. And pleasant emotions also increase dopamine levels, which are important for interest in things and learning. Now, on the other hand, when we're experiencing unpleasant emotions, that tends to limit the functioning of our prefrontal cortex, narrowing our thinking and limiting our interpretations of events. So when we are, again, in that negative space, this is what happens with our thinking. And that's just what I shared with you, but this is this in the diagram. So by design, this process is said to help focus our attention on what's going on immediately around us and to respond quickly. And in this process, unpleasant emotions can diminish our cognitive resources. We can become biased in our views, lose our capacity to objectively evaluate situations, and conceptualize our best responses to them. You may have experienced this in a verbal conflict with someone where you felt threatened and thought about all the best or smartest things to say once you walked away from it. Has anybody ever, and I can attest, again, like I just shared with you, those explanations, but you ever walked away from something, maybe it wasn't an argument, maybe somebody said something a little slick or smart to you, and afterwards you think about all the things you could have said. Maybe you didn't say anything because you were shocked, or maybe you were trying to keep that which is inside you in control, so you wouldn't lose your job or get in trouble. I see yes. Yes, all the time. Now, did anybody know all that stuff was going on in your brain? I know I did. I just know my stress levels would rise. And I should say this and I should say that. And then sometimes, and I know you can't say everything that comes to your mind, but I've had a whole conversation on what I should have said and what I was going to say in the future. Woosah. Absolutely. I'm having too much fun over here. Anyway. Yes. And again, we all experience these things. So again, this is just a diagram. This is just the backdrop, some background knowledge. So now you can go and tell all your friends, if you didn't know this before, girl, you know what? That stress will kill you, or man, or whoever's on here. You can also say, there's actually something going on in our mind. There is actually biologically something going on in our mind. And depending on whether we're in our emotional brain or if we're in our thinking brain, it does impact our decisions. Has anybody ever made an emotional decision before? And when you thought about it, you had some time to think about it, you're like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I should have waited. Or can anybody relate to anything on this diagram? Whether it's the emotional brain or the thinking brain, I mean, we have these things, but depending on how we deal with them will depend on what happens next. Can anybody relate to any of this? Or is it painful? Absolutely. Okay, just a little background. And again, if this intrigues you, we can talk more about, how this may be able to help you, but this is some good stuff right here. So anyway, all right, now let's move. Oh wait, hold on, I got a comment here. Yes, emotional brain. Yeah, I'll try to keep my emotional brain intact. And there are other things to consider, like genetics. We have genetic dispositions to things. There's a lot going on. But just want to give you some tips. So, but what I want to share with you is, the reason why we went over that again is when we talk about emotional well-being and getting there. And like I said, we're going to talk about some tips and things like that. It's important to understand what's going on in your body. So the next time you might be triggered, you might, that's my emotional brain, or is that my thinking brain? Or however you process information. So one part of it is understanding when we talk about the science of well-being, but I also want to introduce when we talk about personality styles, the DISC assessment. Has anybody ever heard of DISC or taken a DISC assessment? I love some DISC. I've been able to work with several clients on DISC. I've had an assessment myself. I've been able to, like I said, coach clients with this, but I also use it in my volunteer work. Okay, well, y'all gonna learn today. All right. Now, how will this help you over the holidays? Well, you're gonna be, I promise you, we're gonna take a few minutes to look at this, and you all are gonna at least be able to pinpoint who you are on the DISC and some of those people that get on your nerves, whether you work for them or work with them, or those family members that you dread being around. It is interesting. I am fascinated by this. And as a side note, if you want to learn more, there are assessments I can do. I can conduct a DISC assessment for you. And again, they have them for the workplace, for managers, and then it will give you an entire plan on how to motivate people depending on where they fall on the DISC, as well as deal with conflict. People use these things in their marriages, in their friendships, again, in their jobs. So let me ask y'all a question. Can you all see this all right? Because what I want you to do is two things. I want you to take a few minutes and I want you to take a look at this DISC. And I will say this. We all have what's called shading in other areas, even if you say you're a D, like I'm an I, but on some days I'm a D. I'm not sure, it depends, but my assessment that day said I was an I. And I did a free one online one time just to see, it said I was a D. But I also have what's called shading in the other areas, but the DISC, of course, like with the letters D-I-S-C. Now, let me know if you can see this okay. If let me see if I can make it. I got my touch screen here. I made it a little bit bigger. Let me see. So what I want you all to do first, one of the things when I'm working with clients is when we go through their assessment is it will tell you what you are. And of course, because you all are not going through an assessment with me right now, I'm just sharing this with you. So can you share with me, take a moment and give you a few minutes based off of this, which one do you think you fall in? And you can fall into more than one category. Some people have like ID personalities or SC or CS personalities. So take a moment. I want you to do two things. Think about where you fall. And again, you can have shading in other areas. So it doesn't mean all or nothing. There is no wrong or right. And then think about that person that gets on your nerves real bad, or that family member that you dread seeing, or family members. And just take a note of it. Where do you think you are on the DISC, and where do you think those people are that get on your nerves on the DISC? I mean, get on your nerves is not probably grammatically correct, but that's the truth. They bother you. They trigger you. Those people that trigger you. So I'm gonna take a few minutes. Feel free to share in the chat or unmute yourselves. I'm interested to know who you think you are. And again, these are also, for example, with dominance, like you all can read, so I'm not gonna read it to you, but what I want you to do is take a moment and look at it. DS. Okay. Have you taken one of these before, or you just were able to find yourself in this DISC? Okay. DS. Okay. I love this. This is such a powerful tool. IS. Okay. Excuse me. Get you finding yourselves. Just think if they taught us these things in college along with financial literacy, we come out a whole lot better. DC. Also in ministry. I don't know if there's anybody in ministry on sitting in on this workshop presentation. Excuse me. But these tools can be used in ministry. They can be used in whatever you're doing. Okay. Want a few more minutes? Or now let me ask, who gets on your nerves? You just want to take a moment. What personality type works your nerves? Or that you don't want to be around this holiday season? I see that. So I had a couple people share. So for the DCs and the ISs, and I'm gonna tell y'all, like I said, I'm an I. And so let me share something while y'all still thinking about who gets on your nerves. Because again, it can be a combination of things. So with I's, people with me, and I have shading in other areas, we like to tell stories a lot of times. Yeah, we all do. We all have some overlap. I think growing up, I was more of a CS, but these days I'm definitely an I, and I got D tendencies. But people who are in the CS range, and again, there's no right or wrong, sometimes I's can be triggering for them because a lot of times we can be excitable. Excuse me. Maybe I should turn my heat off. With I's, we get excitable sometimes. Okay, hold on just a second. Turn my little heater off here. We can get excitable even when we are happy. Excuse me, but we can get excitable when we're not so happy. And for a C or S, a lot of times, they're like, wait a minute, that's too much. And we can cause them to shut down. Yeah, I can get with that. Okay. So it doesn't mean you have to deny who you are, but you have to adjust. Think about that self-awareness, being aware of how you come across to people with your clients or whoever you're working with, relationships. Excuse me. Does that make sense? While I'm over here choking. What are your thoughts here? As we move into the holiday season, and we've mentioned emotional intelligence and self-awareness, now I'm introducing this disc to you. And again, we're going to talk about some tips later. Can you see how this can help you? And I'm interested to know your feedback. What type of insights are you having right now as you're looking at this? Any? Anybody? Because I won't spend too much time on it, but I want to introduce it to you. Can one person tell me, let me see, DCISs. The person that said DC, who do you think you're least likely to get along with? I'm curious. Or anybody. I'm just looking at the people that responded. Or DS. Ooh, the eyes. Okay. Can you share with me why the eye, in your opinion? Or based on what you see here? Help me to know how you were enlightened by that. And what are you, by the way? The person that said I'm not calling names, but the person that said where do you fall on the disc? These would drive me nuts. They may be too rigid. Well, and that's what makes this such a powerful tool. Right here, all you all see is the overview, but in the actual DISC assessment, like I said, and then you can find some free ones online that, like I said, you can do in general, but doing an assessment, like I said, with me having access to things and being trained, like I said, you get a whole packet of information on what motivates these, how you have to handle these, how you have to deal in conflict with them. So what I like with this information is that you don't have to try to figure it out. You have a handbook on how to deal with these personalities. But this is a wonderful overview because a lot of information can be overwhelming. But when I'm taking on a new client and we're going through their assessment, I'll always refer them back to this page when I'm doing a debrief with them, because it's important. It's a quick little overview, especially when you have all that paper. That's right. So let me pick on you further. With these drive you nuts, they may be too rigid. So based on this little piece of information that you've now been introduced to, can you think of an action that you could take? And maybe not, I might be asking this prematurely, but I'm just checking in to see what type of insights you have. What could be one thing that you just learned about these that could help you deal with them?
I would say, this reminds me of a previous boss I've had. And because if they fear losing control, that is why they may have approached me the way that they did. And I would have responded a little differently, I guess.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you think you might have would have responded just based off this little piece of information?
I mean, I tend to be a really patient person, but I was not patient in that moment or those moments because it got exhausting, I guess. But now looking at, because he was very controlling of and rigid, I think I could have just bit my tongue or shown a little more empathy, I guess.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. I have enough here. I'm DC because, like you said, if they too happy, I will be thinking what they up to, because that is not normal all the time. So here's what's funny. People think I'm happy all the time. And I mean, I'm not happy all the time, but I'm going to put on a smiling face because of, I mean, I guess I'm not sad all the time. I don't walk around in a sad state, but I think when I see other people, I'm going to be chipper. Even when I answer the phone, people are like, you sound like a recording. I just do it. And it's just who I am. Like I said, I may have, we all have bad days, but I think for me, it's more of it's not your fault. So why should I be rude to you? But I like that. I've heard that before. And I've actually heard, for those of y'all know who Tabitha Brown is, I actually saw somebody comment on something one time. They were like, we're suspicious of her because nobody's that happy. And I was like, why do people can't be happy all the time or show that kind of joy? But that goes back to it's important to understand that we're all different. So when people will say, oh, everybody likes you, I'm like, no, they don't. They do not. Now I try to be friendly and nice, but everybody's not moved by happy people and people who are friendly all the time. That's just the truth of the matter. We're more drawn to people who are more appealing to us based off of our personality and other things. So I have again, it's been an awakening for me as well. And again, this is not about changing who you are as a person, but becoming more self-aware of how you're perceived by others, how you perceive others, and then taking that information and saying, well, maybe they're not evil. Maybe they're just like this. Just saying. Can y'all see how this connects to self-awareness, even though we're talking about two different pieces? We were talking about the emotional intelligence piece, and then we were talking about the DISC assessment. And again, when coaching, I use these tools. I'm so excited. They need to teach us these things in school, but nonetheless, awesome. Well, y'all, any other comments before we move from this? It's just, I wanted to, and again, so tell me at this point before I move, no, I'm going to wait because I have a slide where I'm going to ask you for your insights. But anything anybody else wants to say or share before we go to the next slide? Okay. If not, I'm going to move, but I'll be checking the chat. So feel free at any time if you have a thought after that. Hold on, maybe I need to make this smaller here. All right, so now, remember when I talked about earlier, when I introduced the science of well-being, excuse me, and then I talked about briefly, I shared how well-being is part of a diverse and interconnected component of wellness that includes the mental, the physical, social, and environmental well-being. So now we're getting into the part which you probably came for is, okay, so we talked about those things, now what? So I'm going to go back to those things as we talk about surround the holidays and in life in general. So let's first go back to the mental part. Here are some tips, and y'all feel free to build upon this. Creating boundaries. That's one. And this is to protect your mental well-being. Again, these are all interconnected components of well-being. So creating boundaries, reducing the amount of news that you watch. I'm not gonna lie, I don't watch the news anymore. I still get news from apps and the internet, but it's a train wreck for me. That's just me. But you still, that doesn't mean you have to stay informed. You can't stay informed. Diarizing, thinking, and reflection time. Perspective taking, balancing what you, my little things in a way, balancing what you read. So again, that's taking it in too. So even if you're not listening, you're still taking it in, learning new things. I'm learning Spanish because I want to be fluent someday. And when I was in college, I took too much French and I haven't been to France yet. And in high school. So now I'm taking Spanish and my French is coming back with a vengeance. But I didn't realize it was helping my mental well-being as well, because it's working those parts of my brain that haven't been worked. But again, it takes your mind off other things. So does anybody want to add to this list? So again, this is about, again, we're talking about total well-being, but the mental well-being is part of it. All right, let's see. Refrain from social media. Woo-wee. Do you mean refraining from it all the time? Or do you mean just taking breaks? Let's talk about it. What y'all think? That social media, you can get caught up going to look for one thing, and Lord have mercy, you can end up some of everywhere, decreasing the activity. Yeah. There have been times where I actually started logging out of my social media accounts because I could be looking at TV or something, doing a commercial break, going just checking for what am I checking for? And so I started to actually log out of my accounts. And if I log out, then when I go back to look, just because, and I can't get in there because I got to log in, I'll go on to something else. All right. Anybody else with the mental? All right. So you have some tips here. All right. To the physical, sleeping better, drinking less alcohol and caffeine, although some of you may feel like you need it when you get around your relatives this holiday season, or you need it to finish your shopping, whatever, but drinking less alcohol and caffeine, eating more nutritious whole foods, exercise most days, breathing and mindfulness meditation. Anybody want to add to this? Again, these are tips. Okay, well then I shall move. Social, relationship improvement. Anybody got any relationships they need to improve on? Goal setting and actions. Leaning into conflict and difficult conversations. Conflict management is something else we're not taught. I'm also trained in those kinds of things. So if you need some people to, again, whether that's in the groups that we're part of, whether that's work, volunteer, individual, with friends, relationships, but leaning into them. And when you lean into them, it's important to have some skill sets. So what's beautiful is hopefully today with some of the things I've shared with you, the next time you find yourself potentially in conflict, you can refer back to that. Planning and being more intentional, being emotionally Being more emotionally mindful of self and others. There's that mindfulness again, that self-awareness. Okay. Anything else y'all want to add? Oh, I'm sorry. Demonstrating mindful listening. That was the last one. So here's one with that mindful listening. Who thinks they're a good listener? We got a few more moments left. And what does that really mean? For example, I will ask, I just told somebody recently, when I ask you how you doing, I'm not doing it just for formality. Have you ever told someone, they asked you how you doing and you told them, and then they act shocked that you actually said not good because they weren't expecting that? No judgment, I'm just saying. Being kind and patient with yourself, yes. Listen with your ears and not your mouth. Lord, yes. Some people listen, they're not listening, but they're thinking about the next thing that they're going to say. So you just talking to them and they're just talking back. Absolutely. I like that, kind and patient with yourself. I didn't know how badly I talked to myself. If there's something I didn't think I did well that day, I'm like, you should have done better. You should have done this, talking to myself. And now I'm just to a point where I'm like, girl, you did the best you could that day. You did good. When I get my 30 minutes in of exercise 5 days a week, every day, girl, you did good. No, when I get off my machine, I'm like, girl, you did good today. And I'm going to stop and say this, if you did the best you could in any given day, then that's good enough, because you can't give more than your best. Okay. I saw something funny. Not been too long ago. I was reading some comments on something I was looking at, and this person said, if somebody spoke to me the way that I spoke to myself, I would call the cops. And I thought that was hilarious. You're doing your best. We got to let ourselves off the hook. You have to let yourself off the hook. You don't have any more to give. So again, I'm like, you did good, girl. You did good. Or like maybe you're working, some days on, oh, I didn't get to the laundry. Oh, why didn't I think to do this? Well, I had 20 other things to do. And you can't do everything every day. It's just not possible. Especially if you want to sit down and rest and eat and go to the bathroom. You have to put yourself first in things like that. But anyway, yes, you can't give more than your best. So if you did the best you could today, then it ought to be good enough, because you can't do no better than what you do. Again, grammatically incorrect, but it's the truth. Anybody want to add to this? Let's talk about environmental routines and rituals. These are tips. Engaging more with things you love doing, engaging in those things that move you emotionally, and also burning essential oils or use scents. Now I can't do that one because it'll tear my nose and throw it up. I'm so sensitive these days. I love a good candle, with the lavender. I put some peppermint oil in my hair to keep it from itching, and I had the worst night ever. I didn't want to wash it out because I wasn't taking down my hair. Oh, I'm so sensitive. But so maybe you can't burn essential oils, but these are other things that you can do to create an environment. What are some of the things y'all do when you have to do a dreadful task, or maybe you need to clean up your house, or I don't know, if you're in school, you need to be motivated to do your homework. Like what do y'all do? Depending on what I'm doing, I'm gonna put on some of my favorite music to get me to feel in some kind of way, or I don't know, what do y'all do to create an environment? Okay, let's see. I started dancing there and realized music, you too? All right. So again, I wish I could put on the candles, but I can't. Because I'm gonna spend the whole time coughing. All right. So do you all see that a lot of the things that we need to do is internal? We can't control other people, and we certainly, I'm not saying let them abuse us, but having a better awareness. Anything else y'all want to add to this? Yeah, hold on, I got a gift for you. I already talked about playing music. So what's next? We are at the end. So now I know I've been asking you all questions throughout, but can you share, and I'm just gonna let you answer any of these questions. So some of the questions are, what are some of the key insights or takeaways from this session? How will you apply some of these insights in your daily life? What will you commit to doing or practicing? Which person will you tell and get involved in supporting you? Because accountability is important. When will you check in with them to discuss progress? So who wants to take a stab at any of these? You feel about anything you learned today? Do you see how all of this connects to your well-being? And if not, then feel free to share. That's right. Talking to yourself softly, because I believe in talking to yourself, because sometimes you need to work some things out in your head, but doing it softly. Don't let people, and again, we forget about how we treat and judge ourselves. And sometimes we treat people better than we do ourselves. So I'm definitely practicing that and then saying, girl, you did good. You did good today. You couldn't do 30 things today, but you did what you did. Anybody else? What else? Like they can do something today or put something into practice, or at least planning to put something in place. Okay. All right. So the next step is, and then I'll stop the recording after this and we'll talk some more about this free gift. So here's my information. If you have questions, well, first of all, this is the information for Bridge, my nonprofit. If you'd like to know more about that, you can follow Bridge on social media. Bridge gives scholarships to Thomasville High School students. Like I said, I forgot to mention that when we were talking about the other things that we do, but it's all about promoting economic empowerment and empowerment. So we had a lot of great resources on there. We have some things around well-being and mental health, some different things, finances, a lot of different things. We partner with a lot of organizations, colleges, universities, organizations. And again, connect with me on social media. Here are all my social media handles. Here's my email address. And the phone numbers up here also apply because it's all me. Still apply if you want to text me or call me. That first one is a landline, so don't, text the landlines. I still have one. But you can call or text, connect with me. You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. Now, y'all hold on, because what I'm going to do is stop the recording, and then I'm going to talk to you all about my gift to you.